Welcome back to Melbourne Strength Cultures podcast. Number one in the heart, number one in the charts. We have a special guest today, Sharrelle Grant.
Thanks for having me.
Welcome. From Geelong.
Cool. Yeah, from Geelong. Travelled down.
How was the drive in?
Horrendous.
Yeah?
You always hit traffic. Why is there always a crash on the M1?
Yeah, it is a long drive. We actually want to do we want to get Biker Biddy on, and she lives out there.
She does, yeah,
so
she's great.
We're going to have to drive out there.
Yeah.
There's been very loose conversation that she'll jump on, so we'll drive out there.
Yeah,
and do one.
for sure. You'll have to come for a drive.
Yeah. So thank you. Yeah, thank you for coming down. We really appreciate it. Obviously, we had Eugene on, and then I don't know if you listened to that or whatever. And then we started. Oh yeah, we should follow you, and then we should get you on. Sorry.
Actually, I've been a loyal follower.
Yeah,
I got the first invite, and Eugene got the second.
Oh yeah.
Can I clarify? Because I replied to his story. And I was like, we have this thing where we always end up on the same podcast, and I'm like, is it the chicken or the egg? Is it me or is it
It's
you?
you.
It's me.
It's 100% you, without a doubt. No, without a doubt. Eugene, bad luck. Second invite. That was a massive episode for us, though. Yeah. He's an absolute fantastic person. His facility is crazy as well. How did you and Eugene sort of end up? Everyone thought you were dating there for a bit.
My poor
And aren't you in a long-term relationship?
Yeah. I've been with Luke for 7 years. I have to think then. I've been with my partner for 7 years, and Eugene and I'd sort of always followed him. I feel like how this is our friendships always start. Like I was like, I followed you for a while. I'm on your little app, and
so you're at Gambaroo.
I was at Gambaroo, OG, and I messaged him one time in Melbourne. When I moved to Melbourne and lived in Melbourne, I messaged him. He used to train at Doherty's, and I used to train there too. And I just actually I didn't message him. I saw him at the gym, and I went up and just introduced myself. And I was like, I'm on your app. I really love your content, really love your stuff. And he's like, yeah, let's train together. And I was like, oh my God.
Crazy.
Okay. And then he messaged me one time, and we just met up at Doherty's in the city and had a training session. I was actually like 3 weeks post-comp, like I'd competed, and I had night duty that night, but I was like, I can't pass up this opportunity to train with Eugene.
Absolutely.
And man, that was like the most disgusting session I've ever had. Like he's like got the whole camera thing going on, and I was just like, deer in headlights. And I was like friends ever since.
Yeah.
Let's train.
He definitely puts people through. I think he just tore his pec or something over in the States.
I was like, you can only have me to push you from now on. Like that is one week.
Pat Davidson.
Yeah,
that's a man to jump into a session with.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Paddy D's an animal, an absolute animal. But something you just literally touched on, it was one of the main things that we wanted to talk about, is obviously, you were a midwife or a nurse midwife. Was it both or just a midwife?
Yeah, so I was working as a registered nurse for about 4 years, and then I got really interested in women's health and moved into the midwifery space.
Yeah, and then balancing that night shift and all of that, also with this actual performance-based bodybuilding side of things, like how that all married and how you went through that process and because a lot of people we talked about this a few weeks ago with Luke Lehman about the challenges of bodybuilding and how much it can just drain your life. Like imagine doing night shifts and combining all that together. How was that process?
Really difficult. I think when because I was working as a nurse, and then I got curious about health and fitness and in the competing realm, so I didn't know anything different. To be honest, like I'd always done shift work, I'd always done night duty, I just always had this really stressed lifestyle. So fitness was my avenue to manage it, to be honest. Like I saw, what real health was like, and I was like, I need to look after myself, I need to start training, I need to start lifting weights, I need to start eating well, I need to start managing my stress, sleeping, like getting curious about that. And obviously competing is the extreme of it all, but I just fell in love with, I guess, lifting weights and watching my body transform. So once I got into the competing side, I had already learnt how to manage, I guess, training around shift work. Life, auto-regulation, like with my training, my volume, I did all my own programming,
nice.
Navigating shift work and like sleep hygiene, etc. And honestly, I never got caught up in making it the best. I just dealt with my circumstances, and now that I've left nursing and I have my own business now, that's bled over so nice, because I'm like, God, if I can do that, Like prep's easy. I can do anything. So it's been really good to go through like the extreme and also be able to relate to real people, because that's the majority is like shift work. And I think a lot of people talk about it. I'm like, you don't understand. Like you don't get it. It really sucks when you're dieting and you know you can't eat and you've got a whole night shift. Like those things are really tough. But yeah, I learned so many lessons from it.
Yeah, I think it's funny because I think like a lot of people like us, you know, we've got the flexibility because we basically live in a gym. We can train whenever we want. Yeah. And a lot of like, you know, people who are more like online coaches or social media personalities, like they obviously don't understand what it's like to balance that with having a real life, having a real job, you know what I mean, real job. Those tough hours and stuff like that. So it's crazy that you've been able to do it. Nah, we're never
seriously though, because I rate it so much. I'm like, fuck. I hope I never come off like that, because there's so many people as coaches that are so out of touch with what a normal person, like normal.
If we're really throwing around
because
like
a lot of what we do is like online. Like if we want to work in the morning, work in the morning. If we want to work at night, work at night. If we want to push our work to another day, we can probably do that. Whereas for a lot of people, that's not the case. So it's crazy that you're able to do that whilst also, so you've probably got a good understanding and appreciation of what it's like to try and do those things. Whereas, obviously, especially like younger coaches, like that we fall into that category, maybe sometimes miss that.
Yeah, just go harder, bro.
Yeah, just fit
that 3-hour session in, brother. No worries.
More motivation. Come on, more discipline. Like,
work harder, right? I think, you see it. Like everyone gets so caught in their bubble. Right? Like we have a bubble, you know, we're in our own bubble, online coaching space bubble, and even like nurses, they're in their bubble, like everyone's in their bubble, and it's so easy to get fixated on the 1%ers rather than looking at, you know, what most people need help with, like what 99% of the world actually needs help with. That's our job as coaches.
Absolutely. How many competitions did you do during your stint as a nurse and a midwife?
All of them. So I actually haven't competed yet post COVID. So I've done 10 shows.
Oh, wow.
I got my pro card when I was competing.
Which WBFF?
Yep, WBFF. So I did World Beauty Fitness Federation, for those that don't know. And I think my pro card, I actually flew over. I competed in the US and got my pro card. I flew over and worked night duty that week and flew. I was like, I'm in the zone. I may as well just go over and do it. And I think it on the internet, right? Like everyone gets so caught up in the 1%ers of like the perfect peak week or these protocols or whatever. And I'm like, I just loved being able to get on stage and being like, I've done all this hard shit and like, I'm still here and I'm going to fucking win.
So you went over there for the pro card, or that was your first pro show?
I earned my pro card over in the US, and then I competed over there a couple of times. I did the LA show and then Worlds as well, as a pro.
What was that like? A traveling athlete?
Weird, right? The suitcase. I'm like, I'm a professional. The amount of times my bikini would always go off going through because it's so bling, it's all metal and heavy. Sure. And they would open it up and I'm like, that's hers, point to my mum. And she's just like...
It's Diamantes.
Yeah.
Is the WBFF, I don't know bodybuilding at all. Is that the Hattie Boyd? Is Hattie Boydell in that?
Yeah,
that
she's
is
a
her
fitness
one?
pro, yeah.
Yeah. Do you have to wear all the full, obviously the bedazzled bikini?
Do you rock wings?
But do you have wings and stuff? How does...
I don't in my category. Yeah. So fitness has theme wear.
Yeah.
They have a theme wear round, but in bikini or wellness, which is the one I'll be moving up to, we just have a gown round, which is not as fun. But
yeah. Are you competing again soon?
Yes, I'm going to do the October show.
Oh, nice. Very close.
Yep.
Awesome. How's prep been?
Yeah, really good. I mean, as I said, I feel like it's prep for the first time because I've never not done it with shift work. So it's been surprisingly easy. I'm like, I just eat and train.
Yep.
That's so great. So I can't complain yet. I mean, it's 21 weeks away. It's not supposed to be sucking yet.
Can you run us through sort of what the next 20 weeks looks like then? Have the deficits started?
Yeah, so I started probably dieting maybe a month ago. I like to make my preps long, so dieting phases in general, even just for women in general, short aggressive cuts aren't going to get you in shape, especially for something like competing. So I like to give myself sort of 20 to 24 weeks at least of a dieting phase. And that, it's hard to say to people what it actually looks like because it's variable week by week. You look at the data, you adjust accordingly. For me, because I've dieted down and competed so many times, I know the numbers that I should be hitting by certain points. But this show will be interesting because I've put on so much muscle in the last 3 years, training with Eugene as well. I'll probably get on stage maybe like 7 or 8 kilos heavier.
Wow.
Yeah, so I'm moving up a category from bikini to wellness just because I just wouldn't make the bikini category anymore. And yeah, so I guess the goal over the next 21 weeks is to just diet down, preserve as much muscle as you can, and just enjoy the process.
Absolutely.
So it seems that right now, and I think you're definitely part of a wave influencing women's health and training, like be in a surplus, train hard, track your cycle, just basic things. You're 10 preps in. What seem to be basic things now, based off of people like you pushing it out there. Did you get sucked in 10 years ago or 10 preps ago, to the common trends that were considered the bodybuilding just busted shit that was going on?
Absolutely.
There it is. That's
the word.
You tried so well to navigate it.
You were going through it so well. No,
Busted shit.
That was too stiff.
Even like...
I was like, this is too manicured.
I feel as though even when I got into training, I don't even know how long I've been. What am I? I'm 28. Like when I was 20, I probably got into the gym, or 19. When I started going to the gym, like it was just me and the boys, right? And I was like, there was no females up the back. And now it's like the opposite. I go to the gym and it's like all the girls. And so like back then I used to go on to T-Nation and bodybuilding.com.
T-Nation.
I used
Let's
to love
go.
reading the articles. I'd get home from work and I'd just like read articles.
There would be nothing on T-Nation for women, sure.
No, there was nothing. I think there is a women's section now.
There would be. They'd have to.
They have to be, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, back then it was all bro science, and like I like, you know, as a nurse I have a pretty good background on the human body, so I used to pretty good at picking out like the BS and be like, that doesn't actually make sense to me, like how okay. So I was pretty good at that, but I did definitely get sucked into, I guess, like overdoing cardio, like thinking meal plans were the king, like specific diets. Like I've done everything, like keto, low carb, high fat, like every type of training and fad diet I've definitely done, which is awesome because I think it's given me a lot of experience and perspective, because I can speak, I'm like, yeah, like keto sucks, like don't do that, because it's easy on the internet now, right? Like social media it has so much like content, and we're really fortunate if you follow lucky people. And when I first started training, it just was not that way. It was T-Nation or your own experience, or if you were lucky, maybe a good coach.
Yeah. You said that you hadn't had a coach with your first ones. Have you got a coach for this one, or you still?
I do. So I'm working with Ben Kant, who's
nice.
Yeah, he's a legend.
We've got to get him on, actually.
You have to.
Yeah, he actually, he's local. We have to get him on.
Yeah. So he manages my nutrition. I still do my own training. I always like doing my own training. He manages my nutrition, but yeah, for the first probably, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 shows, I just did it all on my own because I was so naive. I actually didn't know comp prep coaches existed.
Yeah.
I was just like, I just diet down and that's it.
Just starve.
I just starved myself.
Keto to the stage.
Keto, shred until you're gone. But yeah, I just did it all on my own, and I probably had that fierce independence part of me as well, like just wanting to do it all on my own. I've since learnt to ask for help and let go of control since
But I think, as you said, like it gives you perspective. You learn, you're going through the journey by yourself with no guidance, you just end up learning things. And you probably, as much as it's like, hire a coach and you can skip all of that bullshit. Like sometimes the bullshit is actually important to get through and work your way through that mud to learn and gain 100%. Perspective.
Even saying get a coach, like people think that as a coach, when you say get a coach, it's a sales thing.
Yes.
It's like, dude, I've gone through not having a coach, and I saw the rate of progress compared to when having a coach, and it's significantly different.
Absolutely.
Significantly. Life's hard enough as it is. You don't have to fucking worry about nutrition and training on top of that.
At the same time, like for yourself, and I'm sure for you as well, Sharrelle, like because you did, struggle, or I mean, I'm sure you made great progress, but you can actually appreciate what a coach can offer because you actually know that, this is what I went through, and here's the difference, and here's what I've learned, and here's how I've been able to progress and stuff like that.
Well, we all have our own like emotional biases, and I think that's the most important thing that a coach can do is like, I even caught up with Ben earlier today, like on my way through, and have my skin folds done and everything. And, especially with women, like for physique competitions, right? Like our online coaches, the probably the most obvious metric that they use for progress is weight, right? Scale
Absolutely.
weight. And it's just so unreliable for women. And even for me, like my weight fluctuates so much around my cycle. And, you know, like when you're hustling for 200 grams or 300 grams a week, like you've really got to be able to visually see the changes and not just rely on objective data. So that's why I value having Ben so much, because I'm like, weight's gone up a kilo, but he's like, nah, don't worry about it. Like, looks great. Pinches are good. Like, we're on track. So I'm like, okay, good. Like, don't change anything. Whereas probably when I was on my own, like I would cut calories. I would just work harder, not smarter. And yeah, you end up just like taking the long road.
Yep. So we've discussed nutrition of this current prep. How's training evolved for you since obviously 10, as Jamie said, 10 preps ago compared to the current?
Yeah,
prep?
That's probably been the biggest glow up for me, is like, as everyone, like I love training. It's my jam. A lot of people compete for different reasons. And for me, I just love using myself as like a science experiment and seeing how my body responds naturally to different things. But training wise, like I've really, over the last couple of years that I've seen the most progress, like adopted sort of like a less is more approach with training. I used to always train probably 5-6 days a week, especially with previous preps, but just in general. And I actually sustained like hamstring tendonitis, and that's actually how I started connecting with Eugene too. He helped me through that. But like volume for most female programs is just ridiculously high. I don't know why they just give us 4 sets of 20 for like everything. But
That's crazy. I get some women who've been following like their old programs from their bodybuilding coaches, and like it's actually ridiculous. Like you get like the most volume you've ever seen, and then just add like 25%, like not just the sets, not just the reps. I'm like, holy crap, you're just doing so much. Like 12 exercises. Like, what is this? Like, how do you even fit this in? Like, it's insane.
Yeah, but then you suss up here after.
That's the thing. And then
you suss intensity of those sets, and you're
the
like,
thing.
fuck, did you actually...
They're
resting
not
45
working
seconds
sets.
between sets and stuff like that. Yeah. And then it's like, we can actually do like half of this and probably get even better results.
Yeah. So once I sustained that, I had to drop like 50% of my volume just to like rehab from that injury. And that sucked. You know, that really sucked. Hit me ego, and I was like, okay, I've really got to like, you know, wipe the sled and just sort of look at my training and build back up. So I adopted sort of like a low volume, high intensity style of training. You know, tendons love load. So I really had to learn a lot about sort of rehabbing those styled injuries, and, you know, glutes, hamstrings, really important for competing, and build back up. So going through that process, like now I train 4 days a week, legs twice. And, you know, like I have my own, I guess, strategy and methods of like the way I like to program, but I just really prioritize intensity. And I think that's something I really love pushing with women too, because I think we get so caught up in the high rep, high volume that no one's actually doing stimulating reps. It's just a lot of junk volume.
Absolutely. I think the like the booty band sort of craze of high reps, 40, 50 reps, burnout sets and all that just sort of filtered across and consumed the whole,
I feel like there's some shit starting to die out.
I'm sick of it, right?
Yeah.
Like, and, you know, I feel like the last couple of years, I'm like, guys, like, are we still putting bands on things? Like, are we still doing frog pumps? Are we still doing this sort of stuff? Like, and, you know, it's so controversial, right? So it's your own beliefs of what you think works and what doesn't. I'm not even getting into that.
Controversy.
We love it.
But, you know, something I'm like, well, it works for me, and here's my proof, and here's my client's proofs. And if it works for you, good, go for it. But gave me hamstring tendonitis.
Yeah, I think a leading metric or KPI for that dying out is, I don't think I've been asked to buy new bands since the start of COVID.
Yep.
Obviously not through COVID, but before COVID, everyone was like, no, you need to get the fabric ones. You need to get this, blah, blah, blah. No one's asked me to buy bands. So I think
why do you think that every influencer sells them? They're cheap.
Yeah,
to get
definitely.
made, right?
They're
They're
cheap,
cheap to get made. So anyone can sell bands. It's like probably, you know, 600% markup. So all of a sudden it's like, guys, you know, maybe we should put them away. It's like off the market.
Yeah.
Slinging bands.
Fuck big band.
Fuck big band.
Yeah, big band. Fuck
Bastards.
off. Yeah, dogs. Absolutely. So you spoke about like prioritizing intensity. Do you want to unpack that a little bit? Obviously, we are massive on the RPE it's not a train. We've been on it for years, but
Go to war.
Yeah, go to war with RPEs. But RPE is obviously the crux of how we do our coaching.
Yep.
Is it the same for yourself? Do you utilize RPE strategies?
Yeah, we use RPE strategies, and then I guess it's I work with a different type of clientele. Like I don't necessarily prep a lot of girls, and I don't do powerlifting or anything like that. So I think strength-based goals are so important, and progressive overload for me, just getting the girls to track their weights and to like log that is just enough for them. So when it comes to me, like for intensity, I'm obviously prioritizing like weight on the bar, technique, but then also probably a big shift for me has just been exercise selection as well. Like I definitely got caught in the realm of like just deadlifts and squats, the king of everything. And of course they're like fundamental movement patterns, but physique and bodybuilding is different, right? So exercise selection has to be specific, you know, to the goal. It's one of the key principles of programming. So for me, like really managing fatigue and like central nervous system fatigue versus like bodybuilding style training and manipulating recovery. It's something I wish I knew when I was shift working, because that would have been more important if I had those, I guess, stress demands on me.
Yep. So you said that you don't prep too many bodybuilding clients. What would be the crux of sort of like your client book or all of the coaches that are underneath or within the company? What is the main sort of clientele that you work with?
Yeah, so like I launched the Women's Health Movement last November, and that's my coaching service where I have like a couple of coaches who work alongside me, and we work with women of all types. So not just competing, but, you know, girls that are just starting their fitness journey, girls that just want to get into the gym, but then also the type of client that wants to take their training more seriously. So I like to say training age and training experience are not the same thing, right? Like a lot of people can be training for a long time, but they're a beginner in my eyes. And that's what I see with a lot of, I guess, women, is they get stuck in that, like, you know, just random jumping through programs and booty band workouts, and they just stay a beginner forever. So we work with the girl that wants to progress beyond that. They're sick of the challenges, they're sick of the fads, they're sick of the BS, and they want to actually start training properly like athletes. You know, I treat my girls like athletes. Just because they're not working towards comps doesn't mean they shouldn't take their training seriously. We have a big focus on like education and mindset and women's health, and like I know the word holistic is really butchered, but we have like a holistic approach to coaching where we do focus on all of those other elements, because, you know, training's more than what we do in the gym.
Yeah, for sure. The athlete thing is actually, we touched on that with Lockie Wilmot, and I think you nailed it with it. It's not so much that you have the goal or the level of the skill that you're at. It's the mindset and it's the attitude that you give to. Do you want to go through?
It was just the approach.
Yeah,
the approach. It's like you assume an athlete to be someone that dedicates themselves to their craft, and that requires effort. Yep. So it's not so much you're striving to be an athlete on paper. It's the effort that you're trying to replicate of an athlete.
Yeah.
And
I think that's a big thing to try and push. So I think people think I could never be that athlete. You know what I mean? Then they probably look at most of, like probably you outside of a contest prep, most competitive powerlifters, and be like, they're just more consistent. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's literally it. Outside of sleep, quality nutrition, and then rocking up to training consistently. Like obviously you're going to say genetics, but let's remove genetics from that. It's like, it's just that separates the top level performer and then the person that's just trying to look better for summer.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think it is a mindset, and it's thinking, oh fuck, I could never be that. It's like, no. It's not about the end point, it's about the attitude, and I think that's what drives results irrespective of level.
Yeah. Well, that's a fixed mindset versus a growth mindset. And like you said, that's what separates the elite from the great. And I think the problem is when people say, I can't do that, you got to get out of your own way if you want to be able to do anything. You have to think that you're, of course, able to do so and have that self-efficacy to move forward. So regardless because I think people, you know, even with the fitness industry, it's so goal orientated, and we need to start rewarding the behaviors, not the goals, like not necessarily working towards the result, like reward the daily behaviors that make people consistent, because that's what's actually going to allow people to achieve their potential.
I think it's a tough one, because obviously with social media, it's sexy to put up a PB squat or an N physique. And obviously that is what we're working towards, but that shouldn't be the focus. The focus should be those boring things that we do day in, day out that aren't that fun to talk about necessarily, but that's what gets us to wherever we want to go.
Yeah.
So that I like that you talk about more, and it's again, I do think you're leading the way. I don't really look too much outside of Victoria or Australia at the minute, so I don't know what's going on outside, but the focus in being in a surplus, Like, it's actually busted. Like, I don't know. I got really angry about just everyone posting about like
Deficit.
It's deficit. The deficit. You got to be in a
calorie deficit. Like,
calories
those
in
two
versus
words
calories
that I'm
out.
sick of hearing.
Sick of it.
It's like, please go to the real world and realize that if you just tell a shift worker at a calorie deficit, like, you're not helping shit. Man, that aggravates me.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. But like, I've got a girl at the moment, just 19, come in, and one of her educational training, shouts out Zoe Smith. Got to give the names, have to do it.
Yeah, shouts out.
But she's come in, and the first thing she said, she wants to jump into a surplus. You know what I mean? I think it's unreal to see, and it's like it's something, like you said, it's not sexy on paper, but it is what drives results and those outcomes. And I think you do a great job of actually highlighting that's what you fucking need, not the calories in versus calories out. Like, it's just a deficit, man.
Yeah, I think it's a message that I love pushing, because it's something I wish I knew. Like, a lot of people really try and avoid having to eat more calories. They get uncomfortable, and that's something that we're so passionate about pushing. Is like, it's why the mindset's so important when you're coaching women, is because, you know, food is emotional. Like, we have such emotional ties to the way that we look as women, because it's the way society's made us feel. So when, like, you know, if you're coaching women, if they're uncomfortable, you need to guide them through that and tell them it's, you know, trust the process, it's part of the process. And I like to be proof of that. Like, you have to gain a little bit of body fat. Like, if everyone wants to grow glutes, but no one wants to eat in the surplus or grow a little bit of body fat to also do that. So calorie deficit's a sexy word, but I think calorie surplus is going to be the new word that comes out.
Calorie surplus is the wholesome.
Yeah.
It's the wholesome word. It's the wholesome. Yeah.
No, that's it.
But it's the results word. Like, over time, like, that's going to be the difference maker. And it's awesome for you to obviously mention that you've put on 7-8 kilos, and you have to move up to a new class or a new category. Because, like, in our world of powerlifting, there's so many people who are obsessed with, I want to be this strong at this way, and they just
They stifle
their growth, because they're just oh no, I've got to be, you know, this body weight ratios. But if they just looked at the big picture, as you've done over multiple years, gradually gain weight, like that just increases that ceiling so much more. Whether it's getting stronger or getting more muscular, like, you can't have this goal weight that you have to sit at. And it happens with men and women, for sure. Yeah. We definitely see it so much.
No, I did it for the first 4 years, because my background was boxing. So it's like, you got to stay shredded. You got to stay shredded. If you weren't abs, like, you're walking around the gym, like, you're fat. Like, that's literally, they would say that. And it busted me.
Yeah.
After that, I stopped boxing, and then it's like, all right, I'm lifting weights, but I've got to stay lean, or try and stay lean. And I did not make any progress for years. The last 2 years been in a surplus, and it's like the best results of my entire life. No injuries compared to tearing pecs, tearing quads.
Actually, you haven't been injured.
Yeah.
Find some wood. Oi.
You touch that. But I feel like it's no coincidence.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's something, there's magic to the surplus.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I feel as though when we put women through surplus phases, you know, they get so attached to the scale going up, and I'm sort of like, that's the point, right? Like, when we're in a deficit, we would anticipate over time that the scale goes down. So when we're eating more calories and you're training harder, like, the scales will go up. It's not a negative thing. And I really like to teach, like, being neutral with the scales. Like, don't get excited when you get on the scales if it's down. Like, don't positively reinforce in your brain that that's a good thing, because then when the opposite happens, you'll feel like shame and guilt towards that, and like it's a negative thing, and that reinforces that, right? So we really want to break it. It's just data. I really like to tell people it's just data. It's just one piece of the pie, and we're not looking at that as being the end result.
Especially because, like, the weight will change. If we're trying to get results, the weight we're at will change over time, and the calories we eat will change over time. Like, everyone wants to ask, like, oh, what's your maintenance calories? Like, I think it's the wrong question, because it may be something here, but hopefully over time that can change. It's just the wrong question. Like, we don't have to have this idea of, this is the weight I need to set at, and these are the calories. Like, let's build it up. Why not? Let's get bigger. Let's be able to eat more. Like, why do you have to always come back to the same number and just?
But what do you eat in a day, Didier?
Huh?
What's a full day of eating for Didier?
Body shot at the start, please.
Yeah.
Mandatory.
Mackerel and sardines.
Mackerel. Is mackerel the new?
Mackerel's
the new
fish.
fish.
Mackerel's in. No, 100%. If you're eating tuna. If you slam tuna, have mackerel. More omegas, less
mackerel.
mercury. I'm all about mackerel.
Go.
I'm all about mackerel.
Use my discount code.
Yeah.
I wish I had one. I would be a big shill for mackerel if they sponsored me. I would.
Fuck big mackerel.
No. I'm all about big mackerel.
Big fish.
Yeah.
I saw obviously you're on the TikTok train.
Yep, I've jumped on board. I saw you guys on there
Yeah,
too.
we're starting.
I'm getting close to a dance, I reckon.
Oh, nah,
In my head, I'm ready to start popping and locking for TikTok.
But something I saw. Or actually, what's your experience been like on TikTok? Have you been enjoying it?
I jumped on a little while ago, and I was like, nah. This is, I don't like this.
Oh,
when
really?
it first come
Yeah.
out, like with, the kids dancing and stuff, I was really confused.
It's definitely evolved a little bit.
It's evolved a lot. I do like it now. I've been getting around it. I feel like with any sort of social media, you have to learn the platform. And a big part of me is like, I really like connecting with people. So if I don't feel as though I'm connecting with people on there, I struggle to engage with other people in the content and the creative process, because I love content creation when I can connect with people. But with TikTok, it's different, right? Because like on TikTok, you post and like 95% of the
It's
people that see
random
it.
every time.
Randoms. And the thing I don't love about TikTok is virality is usually a result of hate, not positivity. So when something goes viral, it's usually a lot of negative stuff that's making it viral. And like you look through the comments, right? And you're like, oh God,
That's
like
actually
it's
so true.
savage. You think about
Well,
it.
we've had 2 viral posts. One was definitely hate, but it just turned into
What was the second one? Was it love?
No, it was Charlie went viral on Brazilian gay TikTok. Gay talk.
Oh, I haven't heard of that one.
There was a spotting video where someone's
It's amazing.
Someone's bum brushed up against
Charlie's
the
now an icon.
Charlie's chunk.
I saw that on my For You page. I didn't
So
see
it got shared to Twitter. So that one was definitely positive, but
Yeah.
probably not
That
the
wasn't hate.
positivity
There
that
was-
Charlie wanted.
There
But
was no hate.
was no
there.
hate.
Man, you got
There's
like
not.
500 followers overnight, like 2,500 followers. It's not bad as a
not bad.
percentage.
But
That.
back to TikTok. I saw that you made one where you're like, I'm sick of everyone's morning routines and just watching morning routines.
Thank you for saying that. Thank you.
We're all thinking it, right?
Like, I get up, I have a coffee, I take my multivitamins. Like, no one gives a fuck. Like, seriously.
The new one's coffee enema.
Here's a tour of my sock drawer. Like, what are we doing here? Like, fucking hell.
It's so true. Yeah, I think the shift worker in me come out with that, and I'm like, shut up. Like most people are on the M1 with their coffee, screaming at the kids in the back of the car,
100%.
and
Have
then you're
some
watching
reality.
some 25-year-old fitfluencer that's having a freaking green smoothie.
We got no time to practice mindfulness for 3.5 hours.
That's it.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
My 90-minute routine before I start my day. Like, yeah, crazy. That helps so much for someone with an actual job and
Thank you.
kids.
This is the secret sauce. Yes.
No, the bit that, because it's like, my morning routine, but they're like completely done up. They're looking a million bucks. I'm like, no.
You just roll out of bed looking amazing.
Roll out of
yeah.
bed, your fucking hair's
Wake
fucked.
up like this.
Yeah.
Exactly. I think the thing I do love about TikTok is that it is so filter free. Like something I sort of went off a while ago was filters. I don't know what you guys think of on like Instagram with the filters.
I
and
love them.
It changes your face. I can
I
imagine.
love them.
He does the pillow face.
Yeah.
Like the
No, the duck
The
face.
humor ones are great, but I know what you mean. Sometimes you see, especially because no one in my like close circle, but sometimes people that are just slightly outside, and I'm thinking like, you don't look like that.
Yeah.
You actually like the nose gets like
Crazy.
brought in and like
There's one.
It's actually
there's one that I
ridiculous.
send photos to my partner Nikita, and she's like, "That's really scary." Like full nose job,
Yeah.
like blushy cheeks.
Give us a look.
Look at this.
Oh wow!
Look at that. Look at that to the camera.
Actually,
Suss that out. I've got a
can
nose
you tell
job.
us what is the name of that filter?
It's something Russian.
Yeah, do you know that's so common, right? Like those ones are so common, and sometimes you can see, like Instagram tells you when people are using the filters. But you're right, like the amount of people that you see in real life, and you're like, whoa,
look anything
and that
like
is
that.
my worst fear, right? Like someone watching up being like, wow, you are so much better online. You want the opposite, don't you?
100%.
Yeah, I think it might have been Gary Vee, but you want to try to align your life so that there's none of that like jarring. Holy shit, this person is nothing like what they what they promote online, and I think that's probably why we enjoy this style of content because we
Yeah.
can just be ourselves,
Long
and
and
have
loose.
a laugh.
Yeah.
Yeah, long and loose.
That's what TikTok's good for, right? There's no filters, and it's designed to be instant, right? Like Instagram is no longer instant. It's so choreographed and
very true.
Yeah, like and that's not a bad thing. That's the style. It'll be a shame if Instagram tries to turn into TikTok. But they're just different platforms. So I feel as though like learning how to use it a bit more. I'm starting to enjoy creating the content because I've just been creating for Instagram for so long.
Yeah, it definitely is a different, and you got to play the platform.
It's a different mindset. Like obviously with Instagram, it's usually like 30 to 60 seconds, a bit longer. But every time I try and make a TikTok in my very limited experience, I'm like, wow, I'm saying way too much for this platform because everything else you see is just like 5 to 10 seconds, and I'm here trying to talk for 30 seconds. Like, nah, it's not going anywhere.
It's not the same. This is why podcasting is good though. It's just knowing your platform.
100%.
I reckon if you and I learn how to twerk, we'll go viral in minutes. Two brown boys just
this afternoon.
Just throw it back.
Two brown boys. Let's pull this back to some productive chat. So you've got your competition coming up. I also saw that you and your team did a educational thing with Eugene, a private. What's planned with the business and planned with the girls and the direction that's going? I'm assuming that it's growing
it's been really good. I mean, when I started my business, it was sort of during COVID. I was like getting a bit tired working in the sort of healthcare system, and I'd always wanted to go into the fitness space. I just never saw, I never thought that it would be a career. It was always a passion and a hobby for me. But yeah, when I started coaching and then launching the women's health movement, everything just grew, right? And I just loved it so much. And I bring on a few coaches that work alongside with me. And like with Eugene's workshop and other events that we do, I'm just all about developing our staff. Like I feel as though when you develop the people that work with you, personally and professionally, they'll be better at what they do. So I love just like building the girls up and sort of giving them the same education and experiences that I can, so that we can just keep delivering a better service to our clients. And, we're sort of in a scaling process at the moment, I would say. I'm really happy with the size at the moment. I'm sort of like, let's just sit here and maintain what we're doing. And then we're sort of looking at, I sort of have a program called Train with Sharrelle at the moment, and we're going to be sort of merging that.
Is that an app?
Yeah, it's an app. So we're designing our own app at the moment. We're sort of nice. Subcontracting that. So yeah, that'll be out sort of probably January, I'm hoping. So we're in the design phases and the development phase. Sorry for that. And there's lots of movement, but yeah, it's been fun.
Yep. How's your, so you said you got the Train with Sharrelle app currently and then you're moving. How's your experience been? This is a selfish question because it's something that we are loosely looking into doing in the future, but how's your experience been utilizing an app for coaching processes?
So for the actual coaching for the premium clients or for the Train with Sharrelle?
No, sorry, the Train with Sharrelle. So it's obviously not coaching, but it's like how's that delivery been? Has it been a good experience?
Yeah. So when I made that, like basically I had the coaching service, and I want to say it's more premium coaching of what we do. It's definitely not for everyone. It's for people who take it quite seriously, and I just couldn't cater to the amount of people that were sort of interested in getting like help from me. So that's when Train with Sharrelle come on board, because a lot of people like my training style and the way I do things. And I was like, well, why don't I just deliver my training program to other people and make it really affordable so that at least people can have good structured programs that they can follow. So then, doing that, I had no expectations of it. I was like, oh yeah, get 10, 20, 30, 40 people. And it just really blew up. And I was like, wow, there's like a lot of opportunity here, a big market. So yeah, I guess the structure that we used for that at the start, it wasn't designed for scaling. And that's the thing that we're running into now. I'm like, it's either outsource and build our own or break. So now we're sort of in that process now of, like I said, building our own app out, which has been great. And I'm really glad that I went the approach that I did to get the confidence to spend the money and then see what people needed. Like we've had it's been like a big experiment that we've been able to use that money now to fund sort of the app development. So yeah, it's been really good. There's so much opportunity in fitness. And I think that, those sorts of avenues and creating from need is a really good way to go.
Absolutely. And the new app that you're developing, is that going to sort of replace just the Train with Sharrelle, or is it going to consume and you're going to have the more high quality or the more personalized coaching and also this sort of like entry level thing together?
Yeah, so my vision for it is sort of merging it all together as the women's health movement. Yep. And then the V1 will be catering to TWS, but more, a lot more. It won't be just training. And then the V2 will be the coaching integrated on top. They'll just have different logins. So it's been like a complex app to build out because a lot of people, I was like, why do people just have coaching or an app? Like, why don't they just do both? And I was like, now I know why they don't do both. It's a big job, money, yeah. So it's been so fun, though, because I feel like I'm designing the app that I always wish I had. You know, we use so many apps for fitness, and now I'm like, pull it all together. Like, how can we have, you know, not like a one-stop shop that we can still use the other apps, like still use MyFitnessPal, but how can we pull that data? How can we use Flow and cycle tracking? How can we pull it all together into a women's health app?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's going to be a worthwhile endeavor. I think if you can nail it and really build it out, having everything in one place is only going to be paying dividends, especially as the world moves into more and more of the data and all of that, and the industry in and of itself. How's your evolution of coaching as your coaching, evolution has occurred with data and utilizing data? You spoke about a few other apps there. Do you feel like that can add, obviously it's a positive thing, but do you also feel like sometimes that data can be too much for some people or sort of block or limit the progress? Because in the same way people get fixated on like scale weight, you might get fixated on all this other data that you're coming into and having access to. Do you find that as a hurdle with anyone or clients?
What sort of data would you be referring
So like
to?
the tracking apps and stuff. So a common one, and it's very difficult for a male coach to come in and say, hey, not everyone's going to experience negative effects from a cycle. Like this, it's very like it's almost like you just don't say it, like, because it just shouldn't be said from a male perspective. But like I would imagine that if people are fixating on scale weight in a deficit or having a negative emotion from an increase in a surplus, potentially it's like, all right, my period's coming, I'm expecting to train worse, and then all of a sudden you're just running into the same sort of like block. Does that happen?
With cycles in particular?
Yeah.
I mean, it does, and that's what I don't love about some of the apps. Like, for example, an Aura Ring. I use an Aura Ring, and like when that first came out, it didn't give you all of the data that it does now. It didn't tell you how you should feel, and that's sometimes where the apps go wrong, is they tell you how you should feel rather than the data. So what I like to do, and this is something I actually like Apple Health for with their cycle tracking, they give you the data, they don't tell you how you should feel. So that's what I would interpret using the data as, giving the data, but then giving the education through other ways of like how you may feel. And I think it's really important to highlight that there's going to be trends, but we're all so different. And, you know, you're not necessarily going to need to deload when you have your cycle. You know, there's women that have reproductive diseases and they have different sort of considerations as well. It's more common than people think. So I think as long as you're giving the education alongside it and making sure that you're, I guess, delivering it in a way that doesn't seem so consuming for people, data is always going to be a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. You got to marry it with the subjective and also the introspective sort of analysis of the whole thing, without a doubt.
It's just information. Just information. That's it. It guides.
Yes.
It guides, as you said. It's not the how you should feel. It's you
script.
may feel. I think that's the kicker for sure.
Yeah. So just sticking with the coaching theme here, with your clients that are coming on board and you're taking through, what are some of the key things that you think a lot of people are missing in these initial phases of training or coaching, or some of the more common things that you're sort of educating around and building up on? Both training and nutrition, but also lifestyle.
Yeah, I think, like in particular with training, I think some people get so caught in what's always worked, and what gets you from A to B won't necessarily get you from B to C. And that's where I see a lot of people getting tripped up, going from that beginner phase to an intermediate, or actually progressing and breaking through plateaus and other phases too. So I feel like training approach usually needs to be changed. From what I can see, a lot of people get so stuck in like 3 lower body days, 2 upper body days. They don't go through different cycles and periodization and different phases of training with different like goals and outcomes. So I think progression as a whole, a lot of people get really confused of how to progress their own training to get to a particular result or break through something. But then the other piece that I see in particular with women is just mindset stuff. They just get in their own head, and they need to be in supportive communities and normalize the challenges that they're going through. Like, there's not a lot of spaces where you can go in and be like, oh, I'm disappointed that I didn't hit my macros this week, because that's something that comes up for women that take it seriously. But if you said that to your friend or your girlfriend, they'd be like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Like, shut up. Whereas, we've built spaces where those common things that, maybe you guys would talk about, like shit training session, and it can wreck your day, but if you've got people to talk to about, it helps that, right? Normalizes it. So name it to tame it. And I think having communities, having spaces is something that's missed in the coaching space as well, because it's so one-on-one.
How do you build that through online systems? What have you got in place?
So we do group coaching calls.
Yep.
And
nice.
I have 3 type of group coaching calls that are run throughout the week. We have a grow call. And that's where we do a lot of the mindset work, and we have 10 different calls throughout the week that are like 30 minutes, up to 10 girls. And that's facilitated by the coach. And that's very much where we work on habit building, community, trust building, accountability, lots of different themes depending on what the month is. And then we have our group webinars that are educational based for the coaches that are in there. So it is really the skill of the coaches and the people and the leaders in those spaces to be able to foster trust and community. But when you've got your niche down pat of who you work with, it works so well. Like, you can put a group of girls in a Zoom call and they'll be friends, and it's really nice.
That's really cool. I don't think I've heard anyone else talk of consistent calls like that. That's a really cool.
Yeah, it's different, right? And like, we do things very differently. We have a team coaching approach. You don't just have one coach, because I don't have all the answers, like I facilitate a lot of the calls and I make the curriculum for the content, but I'm not the only one that's leading in that space. And I think, sometimes we get not all the time, but sometimes there's a little bit of resistance because people aren't used to that. They're like, oh, this is different. This is very different. But it only takes a couple of weeks to evolve and realize that you learn from the other women in the space too. It's not just me. You can learn from the mums in here, because I can't give advice on that. And I think that's important, not just for women, but just like humans.
Absolutely. That's a really cool idea. That's props. How did that unfold? How did that become? Was that always something that you've had in there, or is it something that you just saw a need for, or was it your clients brought that up as like, this could be a good add-on? Or
I was doing one-on-one, as everyone does. Like, when I first started, I just did coaching on my own, and I did one-on-one check-ins every week through Zoom at the time, and I was just answering the same questions on repeat, the same spill, whether it was a pep talk or whatever it might be. And I was like, man, I wish I could just put them all in a room and do it together. And then when the lockdowns really got hard for a lot of people, I did like a webinar where I'm like, let's just put everyone in a big room and do a webinar, like an educational based thing. And that worked really well. And I saw the connections and the relationships that were built and just the community. And then not even that, but just from a business perspective, retention. Our retention is like ridiculous because it's a community. So
Absolutely.
When I did that, it was difficult because I was like, oh, I wonder what everyone's going to think. Like, I'm doing it for them, but it's always a bit of resistance when you go from one-on-one to group-styled stuff and still use an app to deliver the main service, of course. But yeah, I just literally announced, we're going to go to these group calls. We're going to try this out and experiment, and it was great. It's the best thing I've ever done. It gives the best results.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a cool thing because we've just brought in like group sessions for it's the full client list, but coaching sessions on the floor. Like, we set an hour once a month per coach. You can come in and meet people because we've got a lot of online clients and stuff. But that could be something, that could be a nice little
Well, we survey our clients a lot, like, or not a lot, but like we really take on feedback a lot, like anonymously, and say like, how are you liking the grow calls? How do you like the learn webinars? How do you like the ask calls? What's your feedback? And it's honestly been nothing but positive. We don't really get anything constructive, which is like frustrating when you survey because you're like, please tell me how we can improve. But yeah, I think a lot of females in particular, because I was one, like I didn't have any friends in the fitness space when I first started, so I would have killed for something like this. Yeah.
We've got about 10 minutes left. I just want to ask, coming back to the very start of your journey, you said you never had a coach, and how did you get started? Like, how did you grow into sort of who you've become in the industry? Because you're in an amazing position, and this has been a motivating conversation for myself, but so I can only imagine what like the clients and the people that are engaged. How did you get into following this thing? Like, obviously you did the nursing thing, but it's cool to see where you've ended up.
I don't really know. I mean, like, when I say I love training and I love this, I really mean it. Like, I feel like I don't work a day in my life, and I know that sounds cliche, but being able to do this sort of stuff and call it work, like, and I think like my early career gave me a lot of perspective, like real life perspective. When you're a midwife, you grow up really quick.
Yeah.
You're like, there's a lot of things in the world that you can't take for granted. So I think perspective was a big one for me, and I've just always been big on just surrounding myself with positive people. I didn't have a lot of friends, like I said, when I started in the fitness space. I didn't really know anyone, and I just sort of connected and networked and reached out to people and messaged people like Eugene and just put myself out there, and it's always paid off. I just think when you surround yourself with good people, that people are above you, right? Like when people are above you and you surround yourself with them, you try and rise to that.
Absolutely.
So yeah,
just growing. Where was your initial like training push come from? Why did you get started with training in the first place?
So way back, I actually got into fitness through running. I used to love running.
Oh, nice.
And as we all do, all the girls get on the running, but I used to do half marathons and love the endurance style of it. And I started just to get some ankle injuries and some niggles along the way. And so I was like, maybe I should lift some weights. I was reading probably on T Nation or something, that I should get into the gym. So I just started training, and when I was at this small gym, I used to joke and call this older guy there my gym dad, because every time a guy would come up and hit on me, he'd be like, "That's my daughter, leave her alone." And he was like an old school bro bodybuilder, and at the start I just started training, and I wasn't even following a program, but my body responded really well to lifting weights, and he was like, "Have you ever thought about competing?" And I was like, "No, I could never do that." Anyways, and he sort of pushed and probed for about, I don't know, 6 months, and then I started looking on the internet and being like, I probably could do that, and that's just what got me curious. So yeah, like I said, when I first started training, I just met people on the gym floor and just really fell in love with seeing my body change and pushing my limits and using the gym as a space to really challenge myself outside of work.
Absolutely. Did you find in those initial phases like training partners, or like obviously he was impacted you because you didn't have a coach, and you didn't have a coach all the way through, like obviously meeting people, but training like did you have a group of people that you were training with, or just in there crushing it by yourself?
Literally I just honestly crushed it by myself. So when I first started Instagram as well, I had my account on private and I didn't tell anyone.
Yeah.
I didn't tell any of my friends I made this fitness account.
Oh, really?
I was like, all secret. I'm going to put myself out there on social media and try and meet people. I actually met my podcast host or co-host, through Instagram, and just slid into DMs. And I just sort of recognized, I grew up in a small country town, so I didn't have, I still don't have any friends from back there that are into fitness. Yeah. So I sort of just realized that in order to meet people that have the same passion and the same things that enjoyments, I have to actually just connect and reach out and interact with other people that are doing it too. So it naturally just sort of came for me by putting myself out there.
That's amazing. That's really cool. I think you've done a really fucking cool job.
Thanks.
At growing, and this has been an awesome chat for me. So thank you very much for coming down. I don't have anything else, boys. Nothing else.
Great body.
Yeah, we covered some great ground.
Thanks for coming down.
No, thank you very much. Just as we do with everyone, where would you prefer people to be sent in terms of finding you and learning what you do?
Yeah, so I guess Sharrelle Grant on Instagram is probably where I'm most active. I do also have a podcast, which is called Level Up with Sharrelle and Danny. You can obviously find that on whatever platform you're listening on. And then the Women's Health Movement is also our coaching page on Instagram.
We'll put all three of those links in the bio. But thank you very much for popping down. And
Thank you.
Pleasure.
We'll
Thanks
see
for
you
having
next
me,
time.
guys.
Ciao.